got us a this is gringo food. Can I get an Asian? I sure
Some mods just scream late 90s or early 2000s, and Half-Life Wanted carries on that vibe even with the Relit mod that recently came out for it. It's from a simpler time, a lot more ambitious time for modding, where people were willing to try strange things, make mistakes, but overall create janky but fun experiences. Relit brings Half-Life Wanted back forward in an interesting way, introducing survival mechanics and making it compatible with the Half-Life 25th anniversary update. It mostly succeeds. It's a fun mod, very wacky. I had not played the original before, and this was quite the experience.
Always wanted me a 10-star. You got dirt on your boots there.
I must
Boy,
practice
this
my
sure
war
is one
dance.
big old mess.
The sun
you think
will
they
fall
could be something
before there is
ambush
time.
for us?
A Western-themed Half-Life mod seems perfect, since there are already a lot of desert environments to work with. And this doesn't disappoint, even with the Goldsrc engine and its charming, but flawed aspects of gameplay. It's not quite Fistful of Frags, but it's a really fun experience. So, Half-Life Wanted Relit has you playing as Rogan, the sheriff of a small town in the Wild West around 1870. You stir up a posse to go after some bandits, and in doing so uncover a large, not quite conspiracy, but an operation to cause havoc in the area by someone who had a personal grudge against you, a bandit named Ramon. What follows are a lot of typical Western tropes. So you're using revolvers, dual-wielding them at one point, you're blowing up mines with dynamite, throwing dynamite around, getting into shootouts and brawls in saloons, fighting against Native American tribes, getting advice from Native American tribes, fighting bears, and doing all sorts of stuff. There are also Gatling guns and plenty of other toys for you to mess around with. It's a very ambitious mod. It's got its own voice lines, models, animations. This goes way beyond the pall for what's typically expected from a Half-Life mod. Enemies and other stuff feel unique, even if they can be a little stilted at times. It's cool. And the charm of it comes from the way it's presented. So enemies do have unique lines, but sometimes they can be repeated. And by that I mean when you're between fighting looking for enemies, they will often repeat the few idle lines they have repeatedly, creating some very unintentionally hilarious build-ups to combat.
I don't know what it is. Well, this is bad. My papa used to say,
Something smells like the back end of my horse.
I sure could use a belt of red eye.
The environments look nice. It's a pleasant-looking mod again. It gives you a nostalgic feeling for some of the simpler mods, but this is pretty ambitious. The weapon models are new, the sounds are mostly new, the environments and aspects are unique. Some weapons and things come back reskinned, like there are throwable scorpions that are just kind of the snarks. But other guns behave a lot differently, and part of it is the original mod, part of it is Relit adding more mechanics. I'd say generally the big thing Relit changes is that it's survival driven, like I mentioned earlier. I mean, aside from health and armor, which are through vests and other food items, you also have to manage your hunger and your thirst meters. Some of your weapons also have qualities, like the pickaxe, which can limit their use. So when you're going through levels, you need to keep an eye out for food and drink to keep Rogan healthy. This can also mean hunting animals, using your combat knife to kill them, and after doing so it'll restore your hunger meter. Under normal circumstances, you don't normally have to worry about the hunger and thirst meters, but there are a few times when the food items will be really spaced out, And if you miss them, your character will start taking damage bit by bit until you're able to refill them, or at least put a little bit on their meters. There were times when I actually kind of soft-locked myself, had to go back a few saves to make sure I had enough food or water to get through it. Some NPCs will also heal you if they find your health's low enough, sort of like how the scientists do for Half-Life. Though these guys are your typical grizzled cowboys and prospectors and everything else. You're also going to a Mexican village, so some very stereotypical characters are there. Again, this was a different time, but it's charming in that way.
I wonder if Miss Maria is free tonight. Whether is this better than farming? Whether is this better than farming? Maria is free tonight. I wonder if Miss Maria is free tonight.
The survival mechanics aren't bad. They're well implemented. This definitely feels like more of a Relit experience than Sweet Half-Life, in that it does give a fresh, new, lively experience beyond the updated HUD, the enemy health bars and damage numbers. It gives it more of a challenge. It reminds me of Red Dead Redemption 2, because that also had meters for food and drink that would adversely affect Arthur Morgan if he didn't keep them up. And that's what they do here. There were a few times I would just bum rush certain settlements if I saw enemies in there, because I would either need to get any potential food inside, or I would know from a previous save that my best bet to stop my health draining would be to take whatever they had inside there. Exploration's pretty good, the levels are pretty well designed and straightforward. You can get lost, but generally speaking, it's simple to navigate. You have a lantern, which works as your flashlight. Though I'll say, I think it has a better design than Half-Life's flashlight. You can see a lot more with it, and it recharges the same way, too. Though, looking around and encountering different enemies, you start out just fighting snakes and scorpions, which isn't anything remarkable, but you move on to miners that are throwing pickaxes at you and trying to get close to melee you. You have dynamite throwing bandits that will either use dynamite as a trap or just try to throw it directly at you to flush you out of cover. Regular bandits with revolvers or shotguns or Winchester rifles. And around the midpoint of the game, you also fight some Native Americans who have guns and bows and arrows. There aren't a ton of weapons in the mod, but they're fun to use. They're unique as well. I like how they all serve a purpose in a way. The Gatling gun is a particular standout. Ammo's fairly common, but it's still pretty balanced compared to the other guns. Its damage isn't as heavy, and it will overheat when excessively used, which means you'll either have to wait for it to cool down or you'll have to smack it to reduce some of the heat up on it. And it's a fair trade. That way, you'll stick with more conventional items like the revolver or the double-barreled shotgun. But when things are getting hairy, you can still bust out the Gatling gun to throw a bunch of lead downwind. The story's interesting, too. Again, this isn't a typical Half-Life mod. It goes through its own paces. You're going through canyons and rivers and mines and Old West towns in order to stop these bandits. It isn't anything to write home about, but it's pretty compelling and it keeps you interested, even if the final twist is pretty obvious. Once they mention about Rogan's past and his family, it becomes pretty obvious who the guy is that's targeting him. And I think that the way that it reuses the town setting can be a little annoying by the end. There were times when it would seem like I would clear out the town of bandits, but then there would be a next level section where I'd clear it out again. Wasn't really an indication if they were more flooding in to cover their losses or what the case was. There was also a section where I couldn't get an NPC to leave the jail to free another character, and I had to no-clip my way into the next level transition. Those parts were frustrating, as were a few soft locks from the food and hunger meter, though I'll admit they did force me to strategize more, and they kept the mod from being a cakewalk. It didn't feel artificial. It felt like if I was meandering too long or if I wasn't using my resources wisely, I paid for it. Because even if my food and hunger fell low, I still would have a lot of health to fall back on, if nothing else. But if I let all those run low, I would pay for it.
Where are you, Zeke? Check over in those shadows. Take this. Fire in the hole. Move it.
It's a fun mod. It's good relit or otherwise, I'd say. The relit aspects make it feel almost like a silly Goldsrc version of Red Dead Redemption 2. Just more linear than exploration-based. Sure, the voice acting is definitely amateurish, but it's fun, it's charming. There's nothing wrong with some endearing voice work done by guys who just are probably getting their friends together, bring them to a mic and being like, hey, record some lines in a southern accent. It feels like the developers for the mod might have been British or Scottish, I'm not sure, but still, I like the delivery in it. I like how unique the enemies are, the NPCs are. It's just a very unique, experimental sort of mod. And overall, I had a lot of fun with it. It took me about 3 hours to beat. And there isn't much to it beyond the campaign and the initial training segment, but it's fun. And if you want to shake up the Half-Life experience with something totally out there, this is for you. I mean, this is even further than Sweet Half-Life, or maybe closer to Surviving Catacombs in terms of how far it is from the original, because They Hunger is still sort of close to Half-Life. This just feels like something completely different. This feels like a Gunman Chronicles equivalent, if that makes sense. That is a good game, by the way. I ought to talk about it sometime. But yeah, Half-Life Wanted Relit. It's not a perfect mod, it has its issues. It may or may not like it, but I think it's endearing. I use that word a lot, but it's charming. It has a early 2000s, late 90s vibe of guys at computers just cobbling stuff together, being like, what if we made a Western mod for Half-Life 1? And then doing it. I would suggest giving it a shot if you're willing to try something strange out. If you like Western shooters, if you like boomer shooters, I think this is good for spending a couple days on.
Not bad for a youngin', Rogan, although bottles don't shoot back.
Anyway, shout out to the creators of Half-Life Wanted and the Relit version of the mod. Both of you guys did a good job. And thank you all for watching. Take care.